All right, everyone, welcome back to our Flexibility for the Inflexible series. Today we are going to be covering the second round of our back scratch sequence. Back scratch, you remember our test pretest where we're reaching one hand over, one hand under, and without warming the hands closer together, how close can we get the hands? And going both ways, usually your dominant hand has a harder time reaching back and under for most people, 90% of the time. So we're going to be going through a lot of shoulder and upper back mobility sequences. You don't really need anything for this sequence. Everything I show you can be, there's a version that you can do totally like in an open floor space with nothing else. If you feel like kneeling on the ground might be uncomfortable, having a mat can help. I will show a variation using a towel or a band for one of our movements, and I will be using like a box or a table, a chair, a sofa, a coffee table that I can put my hands up on for another stretch. And also grabbing onto a door frame for a final stretch. So if you need anything, they're all optional, and they would be to do a different variation of the stretch. That would be a towel or a band, a place to elevate your hands like a low coffee table or a chair, and a door frame or something nearby that you could grab onto and to do some of our side stretches. That's it. So if you need to pause the video, go ahead and do so. Run around, grab that stuff, get yourself all set up, and we'll get started here in just a second. Okay, first up, today, if you didn't see the toe touch volume 2 yet, we're going to be going through everything in one shot today, but spending longer time on each movement. So this is going to be a little bit different variation. We'll see if we see the same improvements in mobility throughout this. It'll be fun to experiment with. So I'm going to start off by testing and retesting my back scratch. So I'm going to reach here. And again, this can be hard to see sometimes. So normally I do this with my thumbs inside my fists, but if you want to go fingers so you can kind of try to feel your other hand or have more of a sense of where you're at, I can help. And it might not even be huge ranges of motion here, but even if it feels better to reach, it can be really good. So pretty tight 20 minutes of work we're about to go through. Hope you guys enjoy, and I'll kind of walk us through it. The first one before we get started is the shoulder car. Now, I showed this both seated last time, or you could do it standing. The idea is that I'm going to set up close to a wall. And again, you don't have to do it close to the wall, that's just optional. I want to draw the biggest circle, so I'm reaching forward, reaching up, turning the hand away, reaching back as far as I can, and sweeping around. Draw the biggest circle I can on the wall without twisting my body. And if I can do it without touching the wall, then I want to scoot in closer because I want to just barely touch the wall at some point during this, and I want to go super slow. So this is all about big, active range of motion. Let's go ahead and kick it off.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
I'm going to stay kneeling.
Shoulder cars.
I'm going to stay kneeling so you guys can see, hopefully better than if I was standing. As you notice, I have my hand on my rib cage. That's because that's reminding me to stay engaged and braced and not pop my back up in order to get me range of motion. Right here, and I feel like that's the case for most people, is that back part where you transition from reaching overhead to reaching out to the side. It's just an area that we don't spend a lot of time reaching that way. So the body, being the efficient system that it is, if we don't use it, starts to get rid of those neural pathways as well as any actual like tissue that could support that. So nice and smooth and slow. Bracing, gotta really fight it. This is a lot about body control and awareness, because it's really easy to want to twist and make it easier. And we actually want this one to feel a little bit tougher than you would for like a warm-up. Warm-up, we might do shoulder arm circles and want them to be relatively relaxed. But for this one, we want to actually have to be working a little bit. Okay, 3 more seconds.
Rest.
Shake it out. Now we're going to switch sides. You might find big differences from your left side to your right side. Again, totally okay. Meet yourself where you're at.
Shoulder cars.
I have had a labrum tear. So again, structural change. Labrum tear right before my son was born. That was great. And no, it wasn't. And so now, if I'm not careful, I get little pops and clicks when I reach back like this. So I go extra slow, and not only do I go extra slow, but I scoot away from the wall a little bit to give myself a little bit of leeway. I'm still working on improving my function. There's no pain, so I'm usually okay. Remember, if it feels sketchy, it is sketchy. If there's like, not only just pain, but if it gets numb, tingly, feels nervy or kind of weird, like you're getting shooting like electric shock, that's all to me in the same category as pain, because it's all nervous system responses to something going on. So we want to be really mindful of that and respect that boundary. So again, I'm reaching forward as far as I can. When I get to the top, I'm reaching up to the sky as far as I can, as far back as I can without bending the elbow. Then I'm turning the hand away, sweeping back. This is where I want to twist. I'm trying to not let myself twist. Now my palms are up behind me, and I drop that. There we go. You guys did great. Next, we're going to go into a
Rest.
cat stretch. So for the cat stretch, the idea is that I'm focusing on this place right in between my shoulder blades. So I can start with my hands out in front of me, rock back into my hips, and then push my sternum towards the ground. Imagine there's a rope tied to the middle of your chest, and it's just gently tugging you down. You can rest your head on the ground if you'd like. This would be the no equipment needed variation, or if we put our hands up on something,
Elevated cat stretch.
I can do the same thing. Sink back through my hips and reach the chest down. What I see with a lot of people is instead of actively trying to arch their back, they tend to just sink and then they're just hanging out on the meat of the shoulder rather than getting the shoulder into a position and then pulling the chest through to focus on the chest and the upper back. So make sure you're not hanging on the meat. Make sure you have, there we go. Make sure you have your wizard hat on and you're reaching out, sinking back, and then dropping through the chest rather than hanging out on the front of the shoulder. If you're feeling like you're dropping too low or you're someone who's super flexible and mobile, again, we're working on developing tension if you're hyperflexible rather than increasing flexibility. So you would get into this position and instead of feeling a stretch, you would focus on driving your palms down into that to create more strength and stability in your shoulder in that position rather than focus on dropping the chest further. Once we get there, deep breaths. Driving those hands down. Whenever you need a rest, if you need a rest to shake it out at any point, take it. We're just practicing. Think of this as a skill practice. We have the timer set for 1.5 minutes or 2 minutes. I'm going to take that time to practice as much as I can, but respecting where I'm at. So like taking a little break there actually felt good for me, and now I'm going to get back into it.
Rest.
Nice. All right, now we're going into our lounge chair stretch. So in this one, I'm going to start seated. I'm going to put my hands behind me. I want to try to walk my hands, my pinky fingers, as close together as I can. Depending on your flexibility, it might be pretty wide to start. That's totally fine. Or I can walk them closer. And then I'm going to spin my elbows together and lift my chest. So this is like we're in a lounge chair at the beach, okay?
Lounge chair stretch.
From here, now that I have my setup in my position with my shoulders rolled back and my hands and elbows, my pinkies and elbows come together, the way to add tension to the stretch is to slide the hips forward without having a big change in posture. So a lot of times when people slide forward, you'll see that they start rolling the shoulder forward. That's not what we want. We want a big, broad chest and then slide the hips forward. Now we can make this an active range of motion or a pulse by actively sliding in and out. That's totally fine. Or we can do more of our hold, which is what I usually do here, and open up the chest and breathe. And for some reason today, I am feeling a little tingly in my right side. So what I'm gonna do is reset. It just shows you how like day to day can be different. I'm gonna try a wider hand position, roll the shoulders back, and then slide forward. And that actually feels a lot better. So that's where I'm gonna hang out today. A lot of this, like trying to teach you guys lots of cool movements, but a lot of it again is about checking in with yourself, learning what feels good and not good to you. I think a lot of practices like yoga and other stretching practices are really founded on that principle as well. I don't know if when you guys stretch, do you close your eyes? Sometimes I find myself like breathing and then I just find myself closing my eyes and kind of breathing that way. That felt better. Okay, you're gonna gently shake it out. Next, we're going into another shoulder sweep. So before we did each arm individually, and I totally forgot, when you do those shoulder bars, if you wanted to use the band or the towel, it was too late. You can grab onto the band and do shoulder circles that way, or with the towel, doing both hands at the same time. So now we're going to go into this prone car. This is going to start in our hand cuff position, and you can do this seated to start. This will be the first progression. Is hands behind the back. I'm going to actively pull my shoulders back while keeping those shoulders back. Remember, that's my setup. Now I'm going to add the tension by lifting the hands off the back, and I'm going to try to keep my hands behind my body as much as I can as I sweep up and then sweep back. You can almost imagine this is like a butterfly stroke in swimming. Still trying to keep some tension in my core, relax back down. So this is another active range of motion one. Now to make this harder, we let gravity work against us more. And I can come down, hands behind the back, pull the shoulders away from the floor, pull the hands off the back, sweep to the thumbs up, still trying to stay braced, move through the shoulder as much as I can, relax back down. This one is hard work for me. I'm actually sweating onto the mat now. Can't talk at all when I'm doing this one. Woo! That is no joke. All right, so finish up your last rep of that if you're still doing one more.
Rest.
Now we're gonna go into stretching out our lats all down our sides, basically from under our armpit and behind it, like from under that shoulder blade here, all the way down to your side is that big, thick, meaty lat muscle. It attaches at lots of different points on the rib cage and shoulder, and opening this up, we can see make a huge difference. So if you don't have equipment or a door frame to grab onto, we can go into a child's pose as much as your knees allow and try to reach the arm over to the side.
Then twisting.
And if I reach my right arm over as far as I can and sink down, that's where I'm going to feel the stretch. If that bothers your knees, hey, we can do a standing lateral reach where we reach over to the side. That's totally fine too. Or my personal favorite is to grab thumbs down on a door jamb or a window frame here, sink my hips back, and I can get a stretch here, sometimes just doing that by leaning back. Or I might even twist and look up and under my armpit and get that huge stretch that starts below my armpit and runs all the way down my side. And I'm gonna breathe here. Another variation of this would of course be doing a hang from a bar. Now if you're trying to do a longer hang like we are doing here, you might not be able to hang for a minute and a half yet. So letting your feet touch a chair or the ground and taking a little bit of weight off can help. So any of those, a child's pose, a standing lateral reach, this, what I call a lat door stretch, lat door frame stretch, or doing like an assisted bar hang could all be great options for you to hit this area of the body. Last time I was having a hard time finding this stretch, and today, no trouble. Huge stretch just from that. Okay. Going to go to the other side.
Lat stretch, then twisting.
My hope is that as we go through these sequences together and keep building off of them week to week, you guys are going to kind of see the method to the madness and feel even more comfortable experimenting on your own to find what works for you. I think I mentioned this before, but that was one of my biggest lessons, was that each system worked really well for some people, didn't work at all for others. And what was the reason? It was because of what they needed at that time and being able to kind of respond and react. And so once I took the shackles off and was like, instead of being a line cook, I get to be a chef. I get to find the things that work for me, add more foods to my repertoire, or in this case, stretches and movements. And that was a really freeing feeling, to not feel like I had to do it the way someone else did it, but that I could take all the pieces that worked for me and just really work on getting in tune with myself. In my mind, that's kind of where the fitness freedom comes in. You feel free because of your fitness and free to experiment within your fitness and how it works for you. Awesome. Someone is spam calling me, of course. So we already hit our rest. We're going into our final stretches. So if you remember, this is the diagonal of the quadruped stretch. So if I go on my hands and knees, put one hand behind my head, I'm going to rotate my elbow under, and then rotate, look up and around. You can imagine you're trying to get to like 12 o'clock up here and 9 o'clock maybe under here.
Diagonal stretch 1.
But the big focus is, again, twisting and opening up through the upper middle back. That can be the biggest limiter on your shoulder. If you're stuck here all the time, then the shoulder just isn't going to function. But if we can open that up, all of a sudden, more range of motion is going to come. It's the same thing with the hamstrings and the hips. I'm getting pretty loud, so we're gonna go full Zelda shirt. But same thing with the hamstrings and the hips. Sometimes if you just control the hip, that opens up the hamstring. Same thing here. If I control the T-spine, that opens up the shoulder. So that would be my first variation. Second variation, I'm going to come up to a kneeling position. If my left foot is forward, I'm going to reach with my left hand back for my right heel. I could go to my thigh, I could go to my calf. But as I do that, I want to make sure the movement is coming from extending and twisting, not from reaching down, right? Because I could get it like that. I want to open, look back, find my point, and touch. And you can hold here, or you can do active full range of motion. I usually like to do a combo of both. This is very challenging. So there's probably we probably went from like level 1 on the quadruped rotation to like level 5 for this one. So if you're having trouble with this, please do not sweat it. This is one of the harder movements I have learned,
Stretch 1.
and it can take time to get comfortable with. So even if you're just starting by looking back and twisting and doing like almost these pulses, that is fine, because that's going to set you up for being able to get into that stretch long term. Couldn't find my foot there for a second. Added about a 5-second hold there. That one just opened up for me. Sometimes you'll find that one rep to the next, you're just like, this is still feeling, and then all of a sudden, it just feels way easier to open up and get back there. Obviously on this one, because we're lifting and twisting, I'm not as concerned about keeping a neutral spine here. Feels good. Still got about 15 seconds, trying to get one more really solid rep in. Three, two, one. Awesome. So that was our back scratch series, going one time straight through, tight 20 minutes. Go ahead and retest, see if we got any better. That feels better for me, because earlier it just hurt. It felt so sore, especially on this side too. I don't feel like I get in quite as far as I did the other day. But coming in, even reaching around to do that movement felt painful on the front of my shoulder, and there I felt a ton better. So for me, successful session. Hopefully you guys feel the same, and I can't wait to see you next time when we hit our butterfly series. See you guys soon.